Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode is graded like a school project, starting with 100 points. Then 1 point taken away for each error involving continuity, plot holes, set mistakes, and whether or not it withstands the test of time. Today's episode is Who Mourns for Adonis? The Enterprise comes upon Apollo, who was one of the original Greek gods of Earth, but he expects the humans of 3,000 years later to still worship him to boost his ego. This is one of the many what-if type of Trek episodes. In this case, like Kirk asked, what if he really is Apollo? And as far as I am concerned, he is the real thing. You can debate in the comments the reality of Greek mythology, and it would make a good alternate video, but for now, he is the real thing. So let's start taking points. Pollux 5 has a strange lack of intelligent life on the planet. That's not good, because it looks like Earth to me. Here is Lieutenant Palamas, the new science officer. Here is Scotty making his move, offering her a wee bit of coffee. The first point is lost here, where McCoy and Kirk bicker about losing an officer if they hook up. This comment does not stand the test of time. Now they are circling Pollux 4, which is actually the Earth-type planet. But they also see nothing of interest here either, that's odd. But it does have a giant hand in space. And yes, when I was 5 years old, this thing scared the shit out of me. Spock says that it's just an energy field. And they slammed right into the giant hand. After the commercial break, Kirk says this is the Beta Geminorum system. But if that is the name of the star system, why are the planets called Pollux 4 and Pollux 5? It should either be called the Pollux system or the planets Beta 4 and 5, so minus 1 point. Maybe I should make a video figuring out all the different star bases.
Yes!
Lieutenant Uhura and Lieutenant Sulu obviously have never worked with Commander Riker.
Resume previous course and speed.
Aye, sir.
1 eye is sufficient acknowledgement, Ensign.
And everyone knows exactly what this means. And here comes the big guy. Apollo really made a big mistake here. He has an Earth-type planet ripe for colonization. He could have easily invited humans to live there and showed off some magic tricks, and the human race on Earth could boast they found one of the ancient Greek gods, which would really help the Starfleet budget since exploring is their primary function. But instead, he rambles on and expects them to immediately bow down to him and bullies them if they don't. So he blew a great big opportunity in the first few seconds of meeting humans after 3,000 years. And Kirk's like, who is this guy? It would have also helped if Apollo said who he was. Both sides refuse to budge, and then this happens. When I was 5 years old, this gave me nightmares for weeks. And my therapist said the only cure was to create YouTube videos about Star Trek and ask everyone to click the like button, the share button, and the subscribe button. Yeah, you knew that one was coming. Kirk gives in, and they are all invited down to the surface, except for Spock.
Aww.
This is polite for mandatory fun. It looks like Spock is pouting. This is Spock's way of saying, I'm glad I'm not going. You go down and deal with that little bastard. The next point is lost for taking the chief engineer to the surface when the Enterprise is in the grip of a giant green hand. And another point is lost for Kirk not bringing down security guards. Apollo wants everyone to come down, so it would have been easy to bring down a whole bunch. Shouldn't she ask this before she beams down? One of the problems with the original Trek, even though they have a large number of female guest stars, too many times they end up playing a dingy character for the storyline to continue. So minus 1 point here for a ditzy blonde. The big guy welcomes them and finally introduces himself, but I don't think Kirk likes Chekhov's response. Apollo sees Lieutenant Palermo, and this is where her IQ starts to drop about 30 points. Apollo lays down the law. He wants it the old-fashioned way. Kirk says, no way in hell. And Apollo uses his growing machine to scare them. If you watch the video, the trees in the background are always moving to simulate a windy day. Back on the Enterprise, Uhura is trying to contact the ground crew. It looks like she heard what Commander Riker had to say. Shout out to Spock here. He shows great leadership skills in getting the entire crew to work on the problem. Is that Marlena from Mirror Mirror? After Apollo takes his magic growing pill, he passes out. That happens to me too. Now Kirk gets information from the ground crew. This episode definitely shows the crew in action. He's like, look at me, I'm back. But he hasn't changed his tune. Kirk is ready to negotiate, but Apollo still reeks of machismo. After all, he has been staring at himself in a mirror stroking his own ego for the past 5,000 years, so it's only natural that everyone else will want to as well. Of course, Mr. Ego Trip is easily distracted. I think I saw this on a Disney movie. He probably won't say this when he gets to know her better. This is why Scotty was brought down to the surface, so he can get the shit beat out of him by Apollo. And now the phasers don't work either. Now comes the dress. The dress looks great, but Lieutenant Palamas is going to start losing brain cells and fall for the big strong man routine. Now Scotty gets his ass whooped a second time. This will happen later off camera. And she goes off to play doctor with Apollo. Shout out to Scotty for being protective, but it's not helping, and she really is kind of a ditz. Kirk reassures him with a pep talk, but he can't possibly believe what he just said. I don't. Kirk and McCoy discuss the what-if theory that a race of superhumans actually did land in ancient Greece and posed as gods. This theory is portrayed in several Trek episodes, like Who Watches the Watchers from the Next Generation. Back on the Enterprise, the crew uses the ship's computers diligently to break free. -1 point here, since the bridge crew doesn't know his name is Apollo. Spock studies the situation the old-fashioned way. Now we'll head back down to the swamp. Apollo makes his move. He gives a brief, sad story of where the other gods went, and hints that they aren't really gods. But in the end, this is what they wanted to do. Here they discuss looking for weaknesses, mainly the energy source Apollo draws from. Apollo returns alone. Lieutenant Palamas is still, freshening up. Scotty grabs a statue off the table to throw at Apollo. This is the third time he gets whacked. Of course, this is why the writers don't want him in engineering, but trust me, Scotty, she isn't worth it. Now Apollo attacks Kirk with Darth Vader's death grip. I think I saw it here, too. A large portion of this episode is just watching Kirk choke himself. Chekhov makes the big discovery. Just how many times does Chekhov make up Russian claims? Eventually, I will have to take a point. And this is their plan. This scene is overlooked too many times. Not only is Lieutenant Uhura good at making communications, she is also an expert at making the equipment work as well. Spock acknowledges her expertise. Sulu and Kyle report. Now I'll have to take a point here, since Spock has been making calculations on his tablet and tells Kyle to take it to the lab. Why not just download it from the bridge? I mean, isn't the Enterprise one big computer? Or did they follow Adama's advice? Uhura hides under the console while Spock lets out a fart. Look at this beautiful Harpin bench for sale. Now they return from smoking their cigarette. Oh, I think she already did that. The next point is lost, since it is obvious this stone table moves around. Here is a rare Trek comment. Kirk says Earth is monotheistic. And why is Palarma just standing up there like a dimwit? Before we see if their plan works, I have to take a point since Kirk forgot Palarma's name. The term look after the girl is a little outdated. This is awful. Apollo wants to eat Bambi. Their plan is to laugh at Apollo and push his girlfriend around. But Palarma didn't get the memo and talks Apollo out of his rage. And he cools off because he knows he won't get laid if he kills them. Her dress is really low in the back. Apollo orders the rest of the crew down and they take off for more god sex. Kirk is a little pissed that Palarma saved their lives. But what's worse, his next plan depends on her loyalty. And at the rate she is going, they should probably start learning to herd goats. Now Apollo is stewing because they insulted his manliness. But does Starfleet loyal Lieutenant Palarma, the expert in anthropology and ancient civilizations, explain to Apollo the changes in human civilization after 5,000 years? Let's see. Yes, as a matter of fact, she is pretty loyal. Penetratingly loyal, to be exact. And she's back. They don't seem too happy to see her. Scotty, you're a grown man. You should know that answer by now. Chekhov wants to get some advice. But Kirk knows that would be a bad idea. And now is where Lieutenant Palarma loses a point for just being a ditzy blonde. She is so bright-eyed and dreamy about what Apollo wants, it looks like she totally forgot she is in Starfleet. Apollo must have done her really good. Not exactly a good role model for young girls watching this show. But keep the dress. I'm sure she has first-hand experience at that. This can be taken in more ways than one. Lieutenant Palarma is giving her orders. She needs to spurn Apollo. It will be rough, but if she did her job right the first time around, they wouldn't be in this mess at all. And this is very true about Apollo. He is lonely. And there she goes to spurn Apollo. I guess she won't get laid anymore.
Aww.
Back on the Enterprise, they have successfully broken through the force field and made contact with Kirk.
Yeehaw!
Spock and his team are ready to fire on the power source. They're just waiting for the okay. They bring up the extra organ in Apollo's body, but really only briefly. Most likely in the original script there was more about this extra organ, but it all got cut. I feel sorry for Apollo here. He is about to get a good dose of a modern Earth woman, and she really rips him to shreds. He has no idea what's going on. Don't worry, Apollo. Earthmen have the same problem. And she is so vicious here. Probably one of the meanest put-downs she can think of. And only a minute earlier she was playing esophagus probe with them. Apollo was pissed. I will have to take another point here though for a bad wind effect. Unfortunately, her dress never blows off. But she was successful. He is using up tons of energy right now. An angry wannabe god. Kirk says fire. They say they're too close. Does this sound familiar? I'm not going to take a point here, but why did he leap over the rock? The Enterprise fires away. What happened to the bowl of fruit in the statue on the table? It's possible they ate the fruit. They've been there for a while. And I'll have to take a point because sometimes the trees move and sometimes they don't. She looks a little frazzled here. This is one of those times when it is okay to feel sorry for the bad guy. Even the crew is upset that they had to do it. They are explorers, after all, that just met a person out of their own ancient history. Apollo has been alone and waiting for them for thousands of years, on a planet perfect for colonization. But in that time the humans grew up, but Apollo didn't. And the only way to tell them they weren't going to play that game was to destroy him. Michael Forrest did a great job as Apollo. His crying here is quite believable. He was born in North Dakota and has an impressive 250 screen credits to his name, including the pilot in Castaway. You will see him again as Apollo one more time in the Trek indie film, Pilgrim of Eternity. At least she gets to keep the dress. Leslie Parrish started as a model and has 75 screen credits to her name, varying from The Manchurian Candidate to Batman, and married Richard Bach, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. She wore the dress one more time in the Maddox episode The Girl in the Frame. The dress itself was sold at auction to a private collector for nearly $10,000. Rumors are the giant green hand belonged to Gene Roddenberry. However, I have seen it also on the Addams Family, and it will have a cameo in Star Trek Beyond. Who Mourns for Adonis gets a whopping score of 88%. And he fades away to join the rest of his family. McCoy regrets their decision, and so does Kirk. But if Apollo wasn't so big-headed, maybe they could have gathered a laurel leaf or two. Next week on Battlestar Galactica, Count Ibley battles the Picard. And until then, check out my other videos and playlists, and click that subscribe button, the share button, and the like button.